Hello, Trekkies and Trekkers. Welcome to Earth Station Trek. My name is Alan, and it is my privilege to. I think I messed up the intro, but that's okay. It is my privilege to introduce the EST crew, which this week consists solely of Keith Johnson.
Fearful be the god or man or beast that stands in my way.
You know it, buddy. And since Chuck and Veronica are off at sea somewhere, they are adrift in the oceans of time and space. We are joined by two of our best friends and wonderful, wonderful guests, Matt and Elaine Sweatman. How's it going?
Very well.
We're doing very good. Thank you for inviting us.
Oh, absolutely. So, Keith, you know the drill. Why don't you lay some Trek history on us, my friend?
Okay, got a couple of good ones this week. An obvious one that I'll leave for last. But I thought this was incredibly apropos considering what we're talking about. On the 20th of March, 1989 was the premiere of the Next Generation episode, Contagion.
Ooh.
And if y'all remember that, that's the episode where Picard discovers a planet at the behest of his old friend of the starship Yamato, which blows up. It was the planet that was one of the planets occupied by a group of aliens known as the Iconians, who were known by their enemies as the demons of air and darkness because they could do what? Walk through portals and appear anywhere in the galaxy that they wanted to in an instant, like walking across the room.
Yeah.
Right.
Such a great episode. Also, it was an early computer episode because there was a probe that the Iconian planet sent to the Enterprise. The whole point was when it probed the Enterprise basically got infected by code so complex that it would basically cause the ship to destroy itself. Early computer episode because it's funny looking back. It took Geordi like several hours to figure out what every one of us know nowadays, which simply turn the freaking computer off and restore from backup.
That's hilarious.
But the portals I thought was such a great idea. Also, premiering in the year before on 20th of March. And I just had to bring this one out. This episode has become incredibly classic. And the most famous line from this is, "He is smart. We find things."
Nope. Nope. So the one good thing you can say about that is that if it weren't for that episode and if it weren't for the Pac-Leds, we would not get some of the great storylines that we've had on Lower Decks.
Absolutely. I mean, I guarantee you, he's a legend. I guarantee you, nobody expected the Pac-Leds to be this long lasting. No freaking way.
That's one of the things I have loved about Lower Decks.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Moving forward, this is another great one. And this will really mean something to Matt and Elaine. On the 21st of March, 1966, the final treatment of an episode was delivered for approval and rewrites and discussion. And it had much discussion and many rewrites and many arguments. That script was the first treatment of The City on the Edge of Forever.
Ooh, and we know that one went through some rewrites.
Oh,
Yes, Lord.
Not everybody was happy about those rewrites.
Yes, and became arguably the single most beloved episode of Star Trek of all time. Arguably, I said, people have many others that they prefer as well, like Inner Light and so forth. But an absolutely inarguably great episode. One last thing. This is quick. 1967. Again, this is incredibly important because on the 23rd of March, debuted the original series, Errand of Mercy.
Okay. Good stuff.
Critical because it introduced the Klingons.
Yeah.
Right on.
But John Colicos as the first type of Klingon, which is the one that I find it's very interesting discussions of Klingons. People talk about how John Colicos, he had a battle joy in him. He smiled a lot. And even at the end of the show, or during the show, he was talking about the glory of the battle. And later on, you had a Klingon who most people say was really the template for the Klingons of the future, and that was Kang.
Yeah.
Much more serious. But I love the contrast between Kang and Kor, how they are as Klingons. Kor is like the joy, Kang is the loyalty and the seriousness of them. Mm-hmm. And I think that those two sides of the Klingons were best expressed in Martok from Deep Space Nine.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Yeah. Last one, I had to say it, of course, 22nd of March, 1931, in Canada, not Iowa, one William Shatner was born. And the rest is absolutely history. Faith is so amazing, as everybody on the planet knows, that he replaced who was originally Captain Pike, Jeffrey Hunter,
Jeffrey
rest
Hunt,
his
yeah.
soul.
Yeah.
Shatner was, by some accounts, as far down as Gene Roddenberry's 14th choice to play that role. Well, because if you look at Jeffrey Hunter, even though people give him grief because they said he was a low energy actor, and if you look at Patrick Stewart, even though they talk about Horatio Hornblower, Gene Roddenberry really wanted a more intellectual captain. That's why he wanted Picard to be French. He wanted a captain who was more thoughtful. And if you've ever seen Horatio Hornblower or read Horatio Hornblower, he is not a man of action like Kirk. He's a thoughtful man. He's shy around women. And so Jeffrey Hunter was actually closer to the kind of actor that Gene Roddenberry wanted for Captain of the Enterprise. And then in strolls Shatner. What can we say?
Yeah,
He set the gold.
Well,
Yeah, that's this weekend in Trek history.
Okay, that is great. All right, so before we move on super quick, we have comments from our buddy Wayne, aka Tiger Blade 2002, who says, "Hi there."
What's up, brother?
He is always there before we go live. I always get my first comment from him before any of us have even logged on. So, Wayne, we really appreciate your loyalty and your, now that you finally gotten into, joining us for our things, because you missed us for weeks at a time. But we're so glad that you're there, and thank you so much for joining us. And he also says we don't discuss those type of Klingons. And our good friend Clarence Brown, who was a guest with us, God, what was it? Maybe 5 months ago, maybe a little longer, maybe 6 months, has joined us and says hi. Thank you for joining us, Clarence. It is so good to see you, my friend. If anybody cannot possibly get enough Star Trek podcasts, Clarence Brown is part of a really good show called Discussing Trek. Go find them and go listen to him. He is fantastic. All right, so we're going to take a super quick break here to promote one of our other podcasts on our network, and we will be right back with our review of this week's episode of Star Trek Picard. And if you are watching live, we're not taking a break. Don't go anywhere. We're right here to talk about this week's episode of Picard, called The Bounty. Before we get into that, I just want to point out that we have a brand new look to our show. Right before we logged on, StreamYard made me aware that they now feature customizable layouts. So it looks different, and I'm excited about all the possibilities. It's going to look different every week from now on, I promise you. So before we do that, I just want to say, if you are watching live on Facebook or on YouTube, leave us a comment or question in the comment section, and we will get to them as we get through discussing this episode. Here we are. It is week 6 of season 3 of Star Trek Picard. We have now entered the second half of the show. So basically, this is the first episode of the second half, like the back half of the series. So, in a sense, they wrapped up some stuff last week, and now we're launching into the home stretch. So what did you think? Just like general impressions, what did you think of this week's episode?
A lot of Easter eggs and fan service in this one.
Yeah.
Even more than previous episodes, which had been pretty heavy with that already.
Yeah. I don't know. There were some that were really heavy.
Yeah.
And this one, it definitely had some. And we're gonna talk about all those things, as we get to them. But yes.
What do you think, Elaine?
I enjoyed the episode, but I've said before that it usually doesn't take a lot to amuse me, and so as long as it's not really awful, I'll enjoy it. So yeah.
I'm with you, Elaine. I am totally with you. I don't need super clever whatever. I don't need. I just want to have fun.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it. I agree with Matt. There was a couple of things. I did write, and I'll just go ahead and say this up front. I did write that the only healthy parent-son couple, the only healthy parent-son relationship in the entire history of freaking Trek is Cisco and Jake. It's been
Right.
Cisco and Jake, because
Right.
that trope came back again today. But I really enjoyed it, and I got to say again, I thought that the way they basically kind of Shanghai Geordi into it made sense. As much as it makes sense to give a reason where you have to get the old band back together.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
That's interesting that you say that too, because before we logged on, I was reading some comments here and there, and one of our friends, Michael Phillips, who I'm sure will show up pretty soon, really didn't like the Geordi entrance. He felt like he couldn't, and I'm sure he'll say stuff when he gets here. I'm sure he'll say stuff about it himself. But he had a hard time finding the traditional Geordi in the character that we were presented tonight. You know, like he's just not reacting to situations the way Geordi should react.
Well, go ahead, Matt.
I can agree with that to an extent. I mean, some time has passed, but it does feel like that their personalities are being molded to fit the needs of the drama or the plot to a certain extent. And we saw that with Riker when he was all of a sudden very reticent to do what needed to be done a few episodes back, and something similar. Right. So I think that was, they were trying to create the drama of Geordi resisting helping, and they had to create that by him focusing on protecting his family when that was not the Geordi we knew from 30 years ago.
Right. And you know, I'm a single dude. I have never had kids or anything, but what I'm told by people who have is that kids change your perspective. Everything that you understand, however your personality may have been at one point in your life, everything changes when you start having children and raising a family and having to be responsible for other people's lives. So do you think that the change that we're seeing in Geordi, which is what, 40 years after his service on Enterprise D, do you think that it makes sense?
It does to me. And also, I was just thinking about this, that also they're just older. I mean, as I'm getting older, there are things that I would have done in my 20s. I'm like, I don't have the energy to do that right now. I'd rather not. I just want to stay home and watch my movie. I don't want to go out.
And it's not even having the energy. You learn to be more cautious the older you get.
Right.
You learn that you are more breakable than you would like to think you were when you were 20,
Right.
And you learn that these consequences have a cost to you, to the people around you. And I think that that's just a natural progression. Let me get a couple of comments.
I agree with that too, because, and also I think that if Geordi had been by himself without not only two daughters, but two Starfleet daughters and a wife, he would have reacted differently. But like he said, and I think he made a good point, it's like, because they're like, it's changed. It's like, yeah, but now they'll come after my family.
Right.
Yeah. And I get that.
And he might not have been the curator of the museum if he was still a single dude. He might still be flying around doing stuff.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Wayne says his first impression of Geordi was, who is this guy? But on the flip side, Clarence says Geordi, now a father, felt spot on, and he had excellent reasons why.
Yeah.
There you go. It's interesting.
I love it.
It's interesting that you get those two completely opposite reactions to.
I agree.
Yeah. It's very cool. I'm going to interject really quickly that I am a little bit sick. If I have to dash off to blow my nose or something, you'll just have to carry on without me for a couple of minutes, and I'll be back.
Okay.
I think I agree with what people are saying, because also, and I think what you said, Alan, about the number of years, I think people are forgetting something else as well. This is not Geordi serving on the ship with Picard and literally looking at and following and being included in every single moment of danger up into that. This is literally Picard saying, hey, Geordi, been a long time. I need you to go on another dangerous mission out of nowhere. Risk your career, your daughter's career, and their lives. Ready to roll? It's different.
Okay, here's a different angle. Let's talk about, this is jumping back a couple of decades, and this is back into the 100th episode of Voyager, where Geordi's a captain, and he's the one who's coming after Voyager to get them to stop whatever it is they're doing and to bring Chakotay and Kim, in. does this follow along with what we saw of him there? There, he is not the young, energetic adventurer who throws caution to the wind because his captain says so. Now he is the captain who is following orders and doing his duty. Do you think that this follows along with that as a sort of middle chapter in between Enterprise D and now?
I do, and I think it's funny you said that because that's exactly what I wrote down in my notes. That's exactly how he was in Timeless. He was the captain of a ship, and they're coming up with this thing where they're not only going to do something crazy, but they may change the entire timeline, erasing him and his family. Yeah. And he was like, I can't just run off on doing this, this cowboy thing with you. So I think it's consistent. I don't think, and also what I do like is, skipping to the end, when he had no choice and he had to step up, Geordi stepped up. That's the measure of a man or a woman, I think. Yeah. Not the fact he expressed a little resistance at first.
Right. Michael Phillips has joined the show, so I will let him speak on his own behalf rather than me trying to quote him from what I read an hour ago. He says, I just thought Geordi was being really illogical because if the entire Starfleet is taken over by changelings, then the best way to protect his daughters is by fighting back. I gotta say, I'm kind of agreeing with that. It seemed very strange to me that he was doing a pull inward protective movement when we're talking about the entirety of Starfleet is compromised.
But I think what he would have done the way he was going, because he wanted his daughters to stay on the station where he thought they'd be relatively safe, and then concoct an excuse for why his one daughter was part of what might be considered a mutinous group. And then I bet what he wanted to do was make his daughters stay behind, and then I think he still would have accompanied them. I think that's where he was kind of headed. Yeah.
Wayne said, "Oh, sorry. Go ahead."
No, I was going to say, realistically, something that it takes a while for that to sink in, and for you to you have to run it through your brain and reach that logical conclusion. I think something similar happened with Shaw when he realized the Intrepid was in control by Changeling. It had to sit in before he helped. And he hadn't reached that point in comprehending what was going on at that point.
I think that makes sense. Wayne says, did not think about Geordi's, I assume the word he meant is priority as a father.
Right.
That's a big one.
And Wayne, as a father and a military man yourself, about that.
Right. Point of view. That's what he meant. Okay. Gotcha. Hey, look who's here. It's Charles Kelso. Dude, aren't you supposed to be on a boat somewhere? He said,
Buenos dias.
He says, I thought Geordi was great. He has more to lose than he did in the TNG days. Exactly.
I agree.
Exactly.
I agree. Yeah. And you know what I find very interesting, and I think this, I honestly think this is 100% intentional on the part of Terry Matalas and crew. You know, one of the things we always joke at and wink about is how they get the band back together, as I've said. Like in the, and gosh, which one was it? Was it Insurrection or Nemesis where they just happened to pick Worf up along the way into Defiant? It was damaged. He's like, okay, I'm going to join the crew. And there he goes again. Yes. And you always laugh at how do they put these people together? And you just have to get past it because you just want the crew back together. Right. And I honestly think that if Riker and Geordi and company had just instantly jumped to, we would have, some people would say, well, that doesn't make any sense. These people are older. They have different duties. They have kids. So I think Terry Matalas and them are intentionally trying to go against the, just jump in with both feet first because they have things to think about. And so I actually like that.
But see, that's what you have this new breed of characters. That's what you have Jack for, and that's what you have Geordi's daughters for. They are the ones who are now in that position of taking that risky action of jumping in to do something crazy because that's the priority of youth. Yeah, that's what you do. So I think it's really cool that they have established these different roles for the older characters.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Without dismissing the older characters too, which I love.
Right.
Hear that, Star Wars movies?
Clarence says after Vadic's next move, it kind of made sense. We're going to talk about Vadic in a minute.
Overacting Vadic.
And he says, agreed, smart move by Matalas and writing team. And I'm just going to say they have been kicking butt this season. This has been one of my favorite seasons of modern Trek.
Yeah. I want to throw in an incredible trivial thing here. I absolutely whooped with joy when I heard the title Commodore come back.
Yeah.
I love that title. It's been missing for far too long.
Yeah.
I love Commodore.
I'm glad you brought that up because I did too. I didn't think to, make it a comment, but yes, I loved that.
Yes.
I loved hearing that rank again. Okay, so before we move too far away from Geordi, I just want to complain about Paramount Plus because, and I don't really give a crap about spoilers. It doesn't affect my enjoyment of an episode. But when I turn on the episode and when the episode is loading and the sort of like the pause screen is a picture of LeVar Burton, I'm like, well, I guess we're getting Geordi this week. Thanks for ruining it for me, Paramount.
Yeah.
Nobody else had that happen?
Well, we saw the Ready Room last week, and I knew Will Wheaton was interviewing LeVar Burton and the two who played the daughters. So I knew from that he was.
I didn't know that. Okay.
I was coming in through a Roku, and it didn't do that for me on the Roku. But unfortunately, my Google phone news feed says, it kept throwing me like, because you like this. I saw Geordi like 10 times yesterday. Crap.
I watch it on a Roku, and that's where I saw it.
Oh, in that case, I probably wasn't paying attention.
In fact, I watched it at work on web browser, and I watched it at home on my Roku, and it was exactly the same thing both times.
I just take that back. I didn't watch it on Roku. I watched it on an iPad today because my wife was on the TV in the living room, so that's why I didn't see it.
Wayne chimes in by saying Commodore rank has been eliminated from naval ranks, actually.
But I love the title. It just sounds so cool. It really does. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's an old Navy field.
Charles
Thanks
says
for that, Wayne.
Commodore LaForge just has a great ring to it. Agreed. And Michael says, I did wonder if Geordi was made a Commodore merely as a callback to that old TOS conflict trope about the stuffy Commodore pulling back on the reins of a headstrong captain. That makes sense. I hadn't thought about that angle, but that's a really good point.
Yeah.
So since we have Charles Kelso watching the show live with us and making comments, I will say that he did a thing earlier, and I'm going to see if we can make this happen. I don't know if it's going to. He actually called our phone line and left a message, which I'm sure he intended. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be able to, if I play this, I don't know if it'll be audible. So let's see if we can get it. And that way, Charles will be like, he's part of the show. Let's see if it works.
Hey, long-time listener, first-time caller. This is Charles Kelso calling from sunny Miami, where I am sitting on the deck of a cruise ship, drinking a Jack and Coke, and thinking about Star Trek, of course. I just wanted to call and say I thought this episode was a lot of fun. It had more fan wank than a 90s Star Trek novel, but in a good way. I thought they had a really clever way of getting Data in there and letting Brent Spiner go full mask, full Spiner, let him play several different parts. And, I kind of liked that they had, the big weapon they're after was Picard's remains. I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense that, certain Starfleet officers would have their remains preserved under lock and key, because these guys go through a lot of weird spacey things, and then I had to pause it, but another of the pods had James T. Kirk's remains, and it sounded like some lifetime sound effects from TOS, so leaving the door open, I guess, for JTK to come back. But I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was a cool setup. I think they're setting up for the finale for all the museum ships to have to fly into the rescue, kind of Day of the Doctor style, and I think we can all guess what's in that hangar bay number 12. But in all, a lot of fun. I hope you guys have a good show tonight. And hey, everybody, and we'll be back in a week or so. Bye.
Well, all right. It's like Chuck never left.
I can tell you the to get on the internet on the middle of the ocean, he is running through some data usage of some sort.
Yeah, that was before they actually boarded the boat. But his comments, that's definitely him on the ship. So if anyone else would like to call and leave us a voice message about reactions to an episode, maybe next Thursday you would like to do that very thing, you could call 307-387. And guess what the last four numbers are? 1701. So that's 307-387-1701. There you go. So call us and leave us a message, and we'll play your message on our show, just like we demonstrated with Chuck. Okay, so we finally have Geordi in the series. We've been waiting for that for 5 episodes. Finally got him. We're gonna. There's one more person that we got at the end of the episode, but we're going to talk about that a little later. The thing that I want to jump into now, though, is the one thing that they hit hard in the trailers was the reappearance of Moriarty. And then he's nothing. He's 2 minutes at the very most, and he is nothing more than a firewall, basically, to keep people away from Data, or for Data to not let somebody in unless they can solve a puzzle or whatever. And I just find that a little irritating.
Yeah, I agree with what Rafi said, when she said, "What's a 19th century villain doing in charge of a 25th century Black Ops site?"
Yeah.
I didn't understand. Yeah, I didn't think that was good use for Moriarty, and was 2 things. One, are we to understand that is the full Moriarty program, the true full self-aware Moriarty program? And I'm still, what the hell was the Pop Goes the Weasel thing? I'm still missing that. I missed that.
from the very first TNG episode.
Right. So what
they
was
showed
that?
You this? Yeah, Data was Riker's first encounter with Data was finding him on the holodeck, and he's doing that whole "I wish I was a real boy" kind of thing and whistling that song, and Riker finishes the last line.
And so what did that do? Did that unlock Moriarty? Was that the point?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh boy. That's almost like yelling Martha.
It was almost like putting in a password to unlock, to gain access to a site.
Okay, that's a little weird. That's like yelling Martha in the movies. Don't kill me, Martha, Martha.
But if you look at the things that they were doing leading up to that, they show you that something is accessing information and planning they're planning a scheme based on the fact that they recognize Riker.
Yes, that's all.
Which you find out is Data, and Data is setting up basically a password that only Riker would get.
So Data was kind of controlling Moriarty's.
Yes.
Okay. So was that the full Moriarty or no?
I thought they said it wasn't. No, they said it was just a construct of Data's consciousness, remembering had been in the holodeck with.
Right.
Now, okay.
I will say that I thought that sequence was really cool. I thought it was really neat that Data is sitting there, basically in his little spider web and projecting out from where he is and setting up tests, tasks that people have to solve in order to get to him. I just wish that they had saved the Moriarty thing as a surprise based on the fact that it was like a 90-second scene, and not pimp him so hard in the trailers that you think he's going to be a major factor in this episode, in this season.
Yeah.
I just thought that was a goofy approach.
Yeah, that was odd.
Yeah, they didn't, in spite of everything they said, I agree, given how the hype, they didn't justify the usage of Moriarty here.
Yeah.
They should have written another story for Moriarty than this.
Well, I mean, it makes sense if he's laying breadcrumbs for Riker to follow, that would be one of them. It just seems like it was strange for the way that they featured him in the trailers. Anyway.
Yeah.
Let's get a couple of comments. Wayne's going back to the Commodore thing. Commodore was bestowed upon personnel with particular specialties, i.e. the female Commodore who was a pioneer in computer science. Charles says that he liked the Moriarty was set up for Data's return. Agreed.
Okay, we got a fan of that then.
Wayne also says Moriarty may be just an avatar for SOD system. I don't know what that means. I'm sure he'll. Oh, said. He did offer me an explanation. Gotcha. Clarence says, I think they would have done more with Moriarty if they had more time. Possibly. I think that they did what they intended to do with him. I just think it was strange that they featured him so heavily in trailers when it would have been better left as a surprise.
Yeah, because that's not the I did not see the Moriarty I know. The Moriarty I know,
Yeah.
more than just someone who says cogito ergo sum, even though he said it in English. I think therefore I am.
Yeah.
This Moriarty literally is kind of cackling wildly, almost as bad as Vedic. What's a Vandik? And
Vatic, yeah.
Yeah, Moriarty is calm and rational and cool and deadly intelligent. And that's the Moriarty I was looking for. Like you said, Alan, I think if they hadn't said anything, I wouldn't have been prepared for that Moriarty who could match wits with Jean-Luc. What we got was not that Moriarty, so
right.
That one didn't satisfy me very much. It's not that I hated it; it was just one of those, okay.
Yeah, it was fine. It just makes me want to say, "Watch out, CC." Which anybody who's ever watched The Nanny will understand.
I never watched The Nanny, but I know he was on there.
I assumed Elaine had.
No.
But I did watch Days of Our Lives, so I know that her love interest used to play international spy Shane Donovan. So I don't get the reference, but I do remember the characters.
Okay. Clarence said that the music notes got on his nerves, which is interesting.
Yeah, I agree with you. That was one of those weird puzzles where you're like, well, thank God Riker was there, and because Riker instantly said B flat.
Well, yeah.
Like, wow. I mean, Alan, you would have got that?
No, I don't have. I've got a good ear for music, but I don't know that kind of perfect pitch, and yeah, I can't do that. Clarence agrees that Moriarty should have been saved as a surprise. Michael Phillips says, I hope Lore doesn't become another of the trailer red herring like Moriarty.
Oh.
I don't think so. So let's talk about Data really quickly.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Chuck says that Veronica got my CC reference. All right. So let's talk about Mr. Data. When we first got the first exposure that we got to season 3 was when they did the cast reveal, and you saw all the old cast, and you saw 7 of 9, and you saw Rafi, but you did not see Brent Spiner. And so there, you had no idea. You knew Brent Spiner was going to be in the show, but you had no idea. They didn't say what they were going to. And people were like, "Well, maybe he'll be Data. Maybe he'll be B4. Maybe he'll be Lore." Turns out we get all of them
with a little bit of soup in there.
With a little, yeah. Exactly.
And also, didn't they mention Lal?
Yes.
From one of my top 5 episodes of TNG, which I love that episode. So y'all thought that was interesting. So is Lore going to come out as a personality trying to assert dominance over the other ones in Data? Are we going to have a split personality thing?
I am sure he will. And, the nice thing is that Brent Spiner has the chops to pull that kind of thing off. And you saw a little bit of that tonight when he's kind of flitting between different personalities.
Yeah.
Man, I thought that was so good.
Oh, when they first turned him on and it was Data, it was Data's personality. And he said Geordi in that way that he does, which somehow speaks fondness and emotion without using overt emotion. I about lost it right there.
How about you, Elaine? How'd you feel about that?
I don't have a strong connection to a lot of TNG because I haven't watched much of it yet. And so I'm still I'm aware of who they are and different characters, but I've maybe only seen 3 or 4 episodes total in my whole life. Okay. So I'm,
Well, you have a lot to look forward to.
We have to get through the original series first.
Yes, I know.
Just that also means that unlike the rest of us, Elaine, you were not going to spend 15 minutes saying that's not Geordi's personality, or this is not how Picard reacts, or that was the wrong self-destruct sequence, or whatever. Which is good because you always want to get what you call new fans and old fans, because sometimes what us older fans don't like, the new fans are fine with, and vice versa. So I think that's a great perspective to have.
Yeah.
I agree.
Michael Phillips asks, didn't the Lore in the trailer still look young? That I don't recall. I don't remember that at all. So I can't answer that. Do y'all remember seeing anything about Lore in the trailer?
I think I remembered it being young too, but I know MCU does this all the time, and I wouldn't be surprised if that was a deliberate misdirection, like they showed him young in the trailer specifically to Yeah.
Kind of like in the, yeah.
Or maybe they're going to give us some kind of like, newly constructed flashback kind of scene and they're going to de-age him to look like the lore of however many years ago.
Yeah.
And that's what they used in the trailer. So I guess that's a possibility. And Clarence says that he loved how we got Data back. Beautifully done. And that lore smirk. I loved that.
Yeah.
When he's in full Data mode and then you just see him shift into lore mode. And man, that was good stuff. I'm really, when we got Data, we got lore, we got just a second of B4, and we got a Soong. I want to see him do Lal. I want to see the Lal personality come out a little bit. I really want to see Brent pull that off because he's such a good actor. I can't wait to see what all they're going to do with this character.
That would be interesting. Seeing Alton Soong just makes me wonder why we didn't see a Soong in Discovery, because there's evidently the Soong is either cloning himself or something, but there's a freaking Soong in every generation of humanity as far as we can tell.
You know it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's jump into Vadic. Not literally, but let's just talk about Vadic. What did you think of her this week? I mean, we didn't get a whole lot of scenes with her, but it seems like we now know that she is definitely a changeling.
Yeah.
So what did you think of what we got this week? Elaine, you want to start us off on that one?
I'm oddly a little confused by her. Like, I'm not.
Only a little?
Yeah, no, like I'm not. I mean, I don't really know what her purpose, what she's going for. Not her, well, maybe not even her purpose in the show. Right. And she's doing something for somebody else because she talked to her hand in that one episode. But who
talked to the hand?
But who is that? Like, is that some greater changeling somewhere?
Yeah.
But and also, I thought their ship kind of got destroyed in an earlier episode, unless I'm just misremembering things. So I'm surprised she's still around.
Well, they banged it with the asteroid, but they didn't show it blow up or anything.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, or meteor, I should say, whichever. But So, what was your overall feeling about her, Elaine? Did you think she was? Because I have my opinions this week. Did you think she was helpful to the plot or the script, or no?
No.
I mean, just flat line.
No, because plus her stuff happened like right at the end where all this other, exciting and heartwarming and all this other stuff had happened, and then all of a sudden she's there, and then I told Matt, I said, "Wait, what did she say?" My eyes closed for a second. Then all of a sudden, Deanna Troy was on the screen. I was like, I missed something, but don't worry about it because I'll figure it out next week. Because she doesn't do much for me.
That's a quote from the show. My eyes closed for a minute.
I think she's not entirely aligned with the other changelings. She's kind of got her own agenda separate. I think there's something else going on.
The way she shot the one crew member, well, I don't like what you're doing. Boom. And I was like, well, she's not supposed to be doing that, is she?
So speaking of, are those crew members also changed because she called them unshapen when she was insulting them?
Yeah, she did. And I'm thinking, yes, they are.
I would, now, you want to talk about a callback and fan service. So I'm I'm in favor of fan service if it's done well and logically. I would do what they say, go squee, if the female changeling from DS9 showed up and was behind all of this, because I love the female changeling. I don't know if they'd even think about doing something like that, but I would love seeing something like that. I thought that Vadic was one step away from, I think Alan had to step away for a second. Yeah. I thought Vadic was one step away from tying a young woman to the railroad track and literally laughing maniacally and twirling a mustache because she was really overacting it to me. I mean, the whole, I'm bad thing, it was really over the top to me this week. And it's been bordering on that since she was first introduced.
Well, when she captured Riker from the Daystrom station, at first I assumed that the ones that were most active in trying to catch him were changeling guards. I'm not sure about that now that she killed them to get Riker. But at the time, that was my impression. And at the time, I thought he was being rescued by a changeling that might have been aligned with us until I saw it was Vadic.
Right.
But what sad a moment, I said the only one that I would want it to be would not really be possible now, because I would have wanted it to be Odo. But of course, I don't want it to be Odo now since Renee's not with us anymore.
Yeah.
You just said something, Matt, I hadn't thought about. Alan, I think you heard that I was saying that Vadic was, to me, one step away from tying a maiden to the railroad track. She was a little over-the-top villain for me this week.
Right.
But Matt just said something I hadn't even thought about, which is, will we get a faction of changelings fighting against the terrorist changelings? In other words, will we get the faction of the changelings that followed Odo's way?
Yeah.
Will they show up, and are they fighting behind the scenes? That would be fascinating.
I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's where we're going with this.
Yeah. Well, Alan, what did you think of Vadic? I keep blanking her. Vadic? Vadic. What did you think of her this week?
Yeah. I have not been impressed with her at all this series.
Me either.
She has been the weakest part of the series so far.
Right.
Which is a shame, because she's supposed to be our big villain. And it was weird that they were going to, revolve this series around a big villain that we had never heard of or met before. And it was, I don't know, it just seems weird. Let me get a couple of comments.
Right.
Tiger Blade 2002 says, is it possible that Vadic is another species that the changeling manipulated to expedite the new changeling abilities? That's very possible. Very possible.
Thought about that.
Like she's a mutant of some sort.
Yeah, she cut her hand off and put it back on.
That was weird.
Right. That was weird. Clarence says that he agrees with Keith. Very mustache twirly. She and wait. Elaine, do it again, because the comments got in your way. There you are. He says she's been waffling back and forth. I felt she was calculated in the Nebula battle. What does that mean?
More calculating. Yeah.
I got you. I got you. Okay, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Wayne says being angry at what they did to her species would go a long way toward explaining her behavior. Good point. And Michael Phillips says, what if Vadic is a cameloid?
Oh, another shape changer.
Yep.
Because
possible.
There's three. Are there only three shape changes we've seen in Star Trek? The Dominion, the Cameloids, and then the gosh, I should know their name. Was the ones in the animated series with Carter Winston? The red multi-tentacle creatures. That was a shape-shifting species as well, who were really cool.
What about the lady from? What was that? There's strange things going on. Okay, so we've got Vadic, and at the beginning of the episode, like the first scene that she's in, she's talking to her crew after she blows one of them up with her gun. First of all, that whole line of like, if another one of you tells me you can't find Picard, I was like, oh, that's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. But then she says, I want you people to track down every person that Picard knows, every friend that he could turn to, blah, blah, blah. My first thought was, it's been 6 episodes and she's just now thinking of that.
Thank you. She should have been staked out at Geordi's place, right?
My second thought was, now I know exactly how we're getting Deanna in the show.
Oh, good point.
Yep.
Good point. But you're right. But to what you're saying, Alan, they should have already been there waiting when they showed up for Geordi. So I agree with that.
So I think she's a little late on that tactic, but it is at least working. It's a good thing that she was able to kidnap Riker. I mean, that just worked out nicely for her.
Yeah, I also think that when we're talking about the Vadic being just a little bit over the top, the kill the minion because you don't like their opinion thing is so overdone that it is a true trope, and it's often used as a source of of amusement. And so I didn't think it worked here at all. The whole she's almost like Commander Krug in The Search for Spock. Say the wrong word or something like that. But it just didn't work here. So when she killed the person, I'm thinking, well, I don't know. Yeah, she was just a little bit over the top for me.
And I don't mind over the top. it just doesn't seem to me like she has that sort of domineering personality. She doesn't have that presence, you know? She doesn't have the charisma to be the kind of leader that they're portraying her to be.
No, she needs to be like the slinky back, like the one who stabs you in the back, kind of, you know, underhanded.
Yeah.
Like have somebody else be the big captain of the ship, but then she going around behind doing all these, you know, shady things. That's what she is, and she's not. Yeah.
100% agree. You know, and I had not thought of that until just this second as we're having this conversation. It's almost like they're trying to make another villain like Jesse James Keitel, played in Strange New Worlds, Angel.
Yes.
That's the type of personality that they're giving this character, but I don't think they have and I'm not saying that she's a bad actor. I just don't think that's the right actor for that kind of role. It's like the role is at odds with what they're wanting the role to be in a weird kind of way.
Yeah, I was thinking at this point they need to explain something like that something happened to her, they experiment on her because she's kind of lost her mind because she's killing minions for daring to question her. She keeps smoking. Yeah. And it literally is every trope. All she needs is a white cat to talk to.
The cigar thing is so bizarre to me.
Yes. It's just so wild. Elaine, I have a question for you. Are you familiar with Deep Space Nine at all?
No.
Not yet.
Okay.
Just you wait.
Yes. Because I was going to say one of the things that, again, you know, for old fans, one of the things that ruins her performance for those of us who know Deep Space Nine is and this is no spoiler, but there's a female changeling in charge of the Dominion. And she's exactly what you're talking about. She's cool and she's cruel. Yeah. And she will, and again, I'm not going to spoil it, but there's one time where there were some scientists researching a problem. Well, they said it in the show, so this is not a big spoiler, but there was a virus that was killing the changelings, and there were some scientists researching it. And she literally says, just so calmly, she goes, kill them all, reactivate their clones, perhaps a fresh perspective. And she's just so deadly cold. That's what we're used to. So having Vedic up here doing what she's doing, or Vadic, I keep doing that. She's just not working. Alan, I think, is making a very good point. It's so weird. It's not that she's just awful, but when she gets inserted, it's like she takes the whole air out of the story for as long as she's on screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh shoot! I just had a thought. What was it? Oh! About DS9. I don't think it's just the female shapeshifter. I think also Kai Wynn. I think both of them are such. They're not physically imposing characters, but they have that dominance of personality, you know. Absolutely. And they're both like sort of like sit behind and get other people to do the stuff for you kind of people.
Right.
And they're both amazing characters.
Absolutely.
And I'm just not getting any of that kind of weight from Vadic. I'm not finding that kind of villainous personality here.
Exactly. I think. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Elaine.
I was gonna say I did like her in the very first episode we saw her in, and she was in the cool ship and everything. It was like, oh, who's she gonna be? But then that hasn't materialized into what we thought she should be. You know, she just kind of didn't do anything. So.
I think, Elaine, what you and Matt are saying is I'm also very curious. I want to see the power behind her.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to see the portrayal of whoever that person or persons. I mean, I don't know if there's like a mini link of Goop somewhere doing all this. I'm just looking for that.
A mini link. I like that. You know, that's interesting because with the Borg, everything is a collective. And we've seen those times when there has been an offshoot of like a separate collective. So this could be a separate mini link.
Right.
I like it.
Yeah, I think it must be.
A couple of comments that sort of relate to what we're talking about. Our buddy Chuck says, I'm just glad Deanna is on the show now. And whatever happened, the changelings don't kill each other. Right.
Absolutely right. There. And again, Elaine, I'm not going to spoil this for you, but the lead changeling in DS9 literally says that nothing was more important than another changeling, that they would sacrifice the entire Alpha Quadrant, millions of lives to protect one of their own. So that's a very good point.
Clarence about Vadic says, I don't think she's leading at all. She's scared for her life.
That's a good point.
That is a great point.
Yeah.
And, that's part of the motivation, I guess, that we're getting from her, but we still don't know the purpose. And I know that's going to be coming. I know we're going to get that in probably episode 8 or 9 leading into, and I'm kind of seeing, in the old school sense, a 2-part finale. So we'll probably get that reveal in episode 8, and that's going to lead us into whatever happens in 9 and 10.
Right.
I should see that.
Yeah.
Wayne says that she's more unstable, and he says that Clarence made a great point.
Yeah.
That's very true. Okay, so Deanna. Finally. So we've been waiting all season for Geordi. We finally got Geordi in a pretty substantial episode.
Yeah.
And at the very end, we got Deanna layered on as well. So we basically have our whole, except for Denise Crosby, we have our whole, and Will Wheaton, we have our whole crew now on the show, and they're all connected. And I'm going to say that we had a couple of scenes where we had some reunions. We had Worf and Picard and Riker getting their first reaction to each other, and we had Geordi meeting them again and hugging Beverly and all this kind of stuff. And man, I was happy to see that.
I love the line that for the milliseconds while I was transporting, I was either going to do a cold handshake or a awkward feeling.
An awkward, long overdue hug.
Yeah.
Something like that.
And I think after that, you better do the hug, Geordi.
Well, I liked when Beverly hugged Worf, and it was like, you don't hug. He's like, I'm hugging him anyways. He can just deal with it.
Exactly. And I wish she had actually said that. What she said was, "It's just so good to see you, Worf." She should have said, "I don't care. I haven't seen him in 20 years, and I am going to hug him.
Right.
He's going to have to deal with it." That would have been so much more Beverly to me. And I'm going to say how much I have really, really, really enjoyed Dr. Crusher this season.
Yes.
Yeah.
This might be the best Dr. Crusher we've ever gotten.
Finally, yeah, I agree with that too.
Yep.
Real quick, I actually thought that the time taken to detail Geordi's problems with his daughter felt like filler to me, only because I'm so tired of the parent-child not getting along thing.
Right.
It just didn't work for me. What did y'all think about that?
It's to me, it seemed like it came out of left field because we haven't seen any indication for the first 5 episodes that she has a strained relationship with her father.
Right.
She speaks glowingly of him, and people compare her to him all the time, and she seems fine with that. And this week he walks in and she's like, "Ugh, it's him." And it just seemed so weird out of nowhere.
Oh, when she found out where they were going, she was like, no, I don't want to go there because it was the awkward reunion with her father. That's not a very good reason not to complete the mission. But
well, she may have been putting on a face because she knows how well known and revered he is, and that is her father. So kind of like, oh yes, he's a wonderful man. This is my father, but secretly it's kind of like, and he doesn't love me, or like she was doing and all of that, just but behind a facade, because you don't want to badmouth Geordi LaForge to all of Starfleet because and then be like, what's wrong with you? He's not a bad guy, and he's not a bad guy. Just no, I think it was more a miscommunication on their part. Like when she finally told him, and she's like, "Why do you think I crashed all of those?" Whatever it was, she crashed it so we could work together on fixing them, so we could do that together.
Yeah,
and so she wanted to spend time with him. She just wanted to be a pilot, not an engineer, but she still wanted his approval and to do things with him. And I don't know that I quite understood what his issue with it all was.
I don't think any of us did.
It
was played up too much.
Yeah, I think my one thing, it's funny, we talked about, did that feel like Geordi or not when he was hesitant to join the adventure. To me, the fact that he has this kind of estrangement with his daughter feels less like Geordi. Geordi was always a kind of a cheerful, easygoing guy. So I just don't understand why he would be almost disapproving of his daughter. And I didn't think the space worked. I would rather they had just had a cool reunion with the three of them, where maybe he's talking to his daughters about, girls, I do not want to put you in trouble. I think the whole angle of not wanting his daughters to risk both their lives and their careers would have been a better time for the 2 or 3 minutes they got than yet another parent-child, at odds with each other. I did love that Shaw was fanboying Geordi, though. When he was
yeah, that was cute. I also really, we kind of talked about this earlier, talking about the different generation and their reaction to things. But I loved that scene where Geordi is like, "You stole a thing from my museum," and Picard's like, "I would never do that to you, Geordi, because you're my pal." And then they both go, "Oh, it was the kids."
Yeah, that was great. I did laugh at that. I laughed at that, and I also laughed when Geordi said, "Stay away from my daughter."
Oh, that was funny. Yeah.
Oh, so there's something going on between Jack and the daughter. I mean, I don't know if y'all picked up on that, but there's clearly something there.
Yeah.
So Michael Phillips says Jack implied that he has a bad relationship with Picard in order to connect with Sydney, but does he? He just met him, and they seem to be good. I don't know. I didn't pick up. I mean, I picked up on him having, maybe a little something for Sydney, but I didn't pick up on him in any relationship to the Picard relationship, I guess.
I think literally I think they're trying to make him a player, and he was kind of macking on Sydney with it. Hey, yeah, I get it. You don't get along with your dad. I don't get along with my dad. Let's go have a drink and talk about
it. Right. That's true.
Let's go steal a clunky device.
No, that was my idea. I called it before they even said anything. When they were
really?
Like, oh, wait, are they going to go get one of those cloaking things from a Klingon ship? And then sure enough, that's what they did. I was like, I called it.
Because earlier she said, when they were on the bridge, she said, short of us being invisible, we can't come back here because they'll see us. Yep.
I know what that is. I've seen enough to know.
But here's the thing, though, me at least, I don't know how many other people, but I keep expecting that they were going to go to this museum and they're going to get the rebuilt, refurbished Enterprise D, because the family's all back together and they're going to be on the bridge of their old ship. And you expected that that's what they're going to do. And I'll bet you, his other daughter said, "Dad, what about Hangar 12? I'll bet you that's where Enterprise D is." And at some point in this season, we're still going to get Enterprise D.
I could see that.
You have to have it.
I could absolutely see that. Two quick things real quick. I didn't get. Are you telling me after all these decades, Beverly, and given her son's parentage, Beverly has not continually microcellularly scanned her son for the disease from her that basically killed his father's body? Yeah. I didn't get that, because she's like, "Oh, you got this. I did a microcellular scan." Like, what, for the first freaking time? And the guy's 23, 24 years old? That would have shown up in his DNA when he was conceived.
The guy's 23, 24, or 35 as the actor is. Charles says the D is in Hangar Bay 12. Heck yeah, buddy! I can't wait.
It better be an inside the space dock hangar, because if it had been one of those outside bays, Picard would have been like, he would have said something. He would not have just let that go.
Also, Matt, it's got to be inside, because they got to steal it and do a whole thing with opening the doors and almost crashing it.
Yes, exactly. Really quickly, because we're right at running out of time.
Wow.
I want to say that the museum scene with all the ships lined up outside, and then Jack and Seven kind of flipping through the images and looking at the ships was a great scene. And having Seven talk about, her remembrances of being on Voyager was so nice. But I want to bring that up because I've been meaning to say this every week for the last 5 weeks. This show is finally doing one of the things that I love about Star Trek. It is giving me good ship porn. Mm-hmm. It is showing me great beauty shots of all these ships. And that's something that has pissed me off from day one with Discovery, is that they don't ever give you any good ship. They don't give you good shots of this show has been so great.
Oh, they had the scene. It was like about a 5, 6, 7 minute scene where they're going ship by ship and saying, "Oh," and then you saw Seven's face when they did Voyager, and it was almost a little indulgent, but I didn't mind.
Oh, I don't mind at all.
and then they threw in some musical cues from the series too.
They did,
which I loved. I thought that was great.
All right, so overall, what did you think? How do you rank this one? Let's just do a 1 through 10. What do you put it on in a 1 to 10 scale?
8.
8. All right, that's pretty good.
I was gonna say 7, 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going with 7.5.
Look at that. So I'm gonna say 2. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm gonna go 6. I thought it was a great episode, but I think there have been other better ones.
Right.
I think that episode 2 this year is the best so far. Holy cow, that was good.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So thank everybody for joining us on the show. And thank you to all the viewers who have watched and all the people who have commented with their questions and their feedback. It's been great. And thanks to Charles for calling in on our phone line, which is 307-387-1701. Y'all better give me some phone calls and give me some audio clips that we can play in next week's show. All right, that's our week. We'll be back next Thursday to talk about episode 7, which I can't wait because we finally have Deanna in the show. Keith, if people after seeing this would be interested in hearing more of you or seeing more of you online, where might they look?
Instagram and Twitter, and also Facebook, primarily the ESO Network Facebook groups, especially Earth Station Trek.
Matt Sweatman, where would people track you down?
Well, in addition to the Facebook, where Elaine and I live Facebook episodes of Star Trek,
yes, sir.
I am going to be on an Earth Station 1 podcast. We're recording Monday on The Last of Us TV show.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
That's awesome. All right, Elaine, let us know about your other projects.
Yes, I am also part of 3 with Chuck and Veronica of Monkeying Around, a podcast about the monkeys.
Yes.
Yes, you did.
Thank you for doing the Veronica dance when you say
it. And you can find us on Twitter at Monkeying Around, Facebook, we're on Instagram, and we have a Facebook discussion group. And then I myself am on Facebook and Twitter.
Yep. So. I will say that in addition to Monkeying Around, you can find Charles and Veronica at feltnerdy.com. They are puppeteers. They have just celebrated their 10th anniversary as puppeteers, and they do shows all over the place at conventions and other events. And I don't know exactly what all they have coming up, but if you go to feltnerdy.com, you will find out, and you should do that. And I will say that you could find more of my stuff at cosmicpress.com. Actually, no, Cosmic Creative. Let's do that. KOZMIC creative.com. I have another podcast on this very network called Modern Musicology, and we have got 2 exceptionally amazing interviews. This week we have been talking to I'll let you. The one I was going to mention isn't out yet. It's actually comes out on Monday, so I'll just save that. And then the week after that, we're talking to 2 members of my favorite band. So. All right, so that's it for us this week. Y'all take care. Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. We'll see you again next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And we will do this whole thing again, and we will take your comments and questions, and we can't wait to do that. So, Matt and Elaine, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having us.
Next Thursday, we are going to be on with Michael Phillips. So that's pretty exciting.
Yay.
Who also thinks Obsession is one of the best episodes of Trek ever, like me.
Right on. You've seen his comments. We've read his comments on screen. Yes. Now you will see his face and hear his voice.
All right. Awesome.
Take care, everybody. See y'all next Thursday.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Right. Bye.